The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome. It is Wednesday. We've got so much to do during our time here today and I couldn't be more excited. We've got a very packed show for you again today. We're going to start out this 2 hours and Emily. I started to say Emily, but Emily has left us. Now we have the fabulous Kelby. Kelby, in just a second, is going to be showing you some of the different ways you can get in touch with us. In this first hour, we have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. She is here with us to answer your questions during a segment we call Ask Dr. Doreen. You guys have already written in several things on the website and on the Facebook, but we can take more. Keep them coming in. Kelby is showing you right now our homepage, which is autism-live.com. You can go there and when the show is live, and actually any time of the day, you can go there and put your cursor where it says your questions, start typing, hit enter, and it will appear here on the screen. Now, obviously, if we're not live, we don't have a way of interacting with you in that moment. But the next live show, we will be talking about the things that you guys have sent in. It's totally free. There is no cost to you. You don't have to log in. You're not giving any personal information. You have complete and total anonymity unless you choose to give us an email address or some other way of getting in touch with you. I know somebody this morning sent us a phone number. Whatever works best for you, we will not share that information with the viewers at home. You can send that and I won't put it up on the screen. That's our deal with you. We hope that you will participate because this entire show is meant to be interactive. So our first hour, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh will be here. In the second hour, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson joins me for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've got a very special show today. We have been showing you on our Facebook page and our YouTube page that on Monday, it was our great pleasure to interview Dr. Bob Sears. He is all of a sudden become another epicenter after he wrote a blog about the CDC whistleblower and what takeaway we might get, and more questions actually that he raised than answers in that article. We wanted to interview him because the LA Times had done a piece on him and the title of the LA Times called him a vaccine heretic, which seemed very strong language to us. We did do that interview on Monday. We've been showing you just a small clip of it, and we are going to air that entire interview today during the 11 o'clock hour. There is new information, an editorial that was in the LA Times this morning, and we'll be covering that as well. We have special guests from they're from an organization called Special Spirits that do equine therapy. They're going to be here with us as well, and we're going to give you an update on the horrible, horrible circumstances surrounding the 14-year-old teen in Ohio who was doing the ALS Bucket Challenge, and thought he was anyway, and had people dumping urine, feces, and cigarette butts on him. So we'll have an update for you on that a little bit later on in the show. All of that and ever so much more, but especially your questions, that's what we will be covering today. I'm glad that you're here with us, thrilled that you're joining us in this moment. And it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here. I'm so busy with 8 other things that I'm doing today. So I'm gonna join you now live because my head has been 16 other places. No, my bad. But anyway, so thrilled to be here this morning with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. This is I have to say, my favorite hour of the week, that I get an opportunity to be here and witness the kinds of things that you say to people. You are an expert in this field of autism.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you.
And I think as important, maybe more important, you're a visionary in this field. You see things and you see so far down the road. It's like playing chess with somebody who's really good and they can see 3 moves ahead. You're like that with autism.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. I have to learn how to take your lovely compliments every week. They make me very... it's embarrassing, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you putting up with it because it's all true. And so Dr. Grandpichet is here to be answering your questions. We hope that you will participate. We like to remind you at the start of the show that no expert can, in this format, give individual specific advice. So when you're writing in, give as much information as you can, and I really encourage you to say where in the world you are, because autism resources are not the same around the world. And if we're trying to hook you up to resources and individuals who can help you on the ground, it helps us to know where you are. You also like to know what the age of the individual is and a little bit about what's happening.
Right. I mean, if there are specific questions that are being asked, then it would be very helpful to have that information. Yeah.
But having said that, you can't give a specific answer about how to treat in this format because there's no way you could give enough information where she could give specific advice. It would be a disservice to that individual. So we never want to make it seem as though we can give individual specific advice. No one could in this format.
Right. That's exactly right.
But when you keep that in mind and you send information, I think what happens, and we see this so often, is that you are able to give people a context for what's happening where they can go back and ask more questions, get better resources as a result of having this conversation with you.
Right. A context and also maybe a different perspective.
Yes, which is truly wonderful. So having said that, I want to jump in with a couple of different questions that came into us on our Facebook. We love it when you guys interact with us on Facebook. The first one, my 4-year-old scripts a lot throughout the day about movies, songs, etc. Constantly wants to sing songs too. Sometimes he uses some of the scripting appropriately with his sentences, but most of the times no. When he is constantly singing, I tell him, you can sing in the bathtub or the car. He sometimes stops. The scripting can be a little harder sometimes. I ask him, what are you talking about? And he'll say things like the show, the movie, pictures, etc. How can I redirect him or make it more appropriately because he is trying to communicate more that way? And they wrote, thanks a lot, guys. And I believe that this is a dad who wrote in.
This is awesome. These are very good questions. And Mom or Dad, I love it when parents are so in tune to what's going on with their kids. Very nice. Nice description, nice care, concern, everything. So a couple of things. I started noticing this type of thing, like, I don't know, 25 years ago with our kids, and came up with a lot of ideas to help with out of context, sort of repetitive delayed echolalia is sort of how we look at it. But it is very... you see an intention in it. You definitely see our kids wanting to, like, using what they hear on TV or hear in music to try to connect somehow. So there's a social aspect to it for sure. But it is an inappropriate way of trying to socialize or to interact. So you do kind of want to keep it under control and redirect it. But at the same time, it's not something that you would really want to eliminate, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at how old was this child?
4.
4, yeah. So if you look at other 4-year-olds, typically developing 4-year-olds, a lot of their conversation is telling you about things they've experienced. A lot of so a 3-year-old or 2-year-old might just be telling you by pointing to things and labeling things, and all they're doing is they're sharing their experience with you. So what they're, like fire truck or whatever it is they see, and that's a very important thing. Actually, it's one of the symptoms of autism not to do that. So it's very, very important to share your experience with someone else, because that's the very beginning of theory of mind development. And then you have, at 4 and so on, they'll come and tell you things like, you know, or 3 even, you know, Johnny ran away or Johnny pushed me over, whatever it is. They're sharing something with you when you weren't there, right? So what our kids try to do when they start to take scenes from, let's say, a movie or a TV show and tell it to you or say it, repeat it, the real, it's not odd that they're doing that. That part is fine because a lot of kids will come and say, you know, on such and such show, blah, 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 blah. The weird part or the odd part is that they don't introduce it. They don't say, all they really need to do is say, I saw, do you remember that show we saw? I mean, this is half my conversation with my kids right now at this age, you know, it's like, do you remember when we were watching Breaking Bad, blah, 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 blah?
Right.
Okay, so it's that one introductory statement that's really missing. It's the context, exactly. So what you should rather do is teach the contextual introduction. That's what you should be focusing on. So sometimes it won't be appropriate because the setting guides what is appropriate. So let's say if you're in school, in a classroom, it's not going to be appropriate to talk about anything because you're listening to the teacher. If you're in the middle of conversation about something, it's not appropriate to suddenly break out in singing. Although, depending on the age, it might be.
I know adults that do this.
I know Charlie would do that. but the context has to be present. So you would start by, I would start by listing all the circumstances under which your child does either one of these things. And there's, you know, singing, and then there's talking or repeating a script from a movie or something. And then I would, for the script ones, I would really introduce have an introductory statement. And you should start with one, and you can then vary them. It'll be things like, you know, I saw a show and blah, 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 this is what happened. Or, you know, this show called blah, 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 there were these kids doing this, or whatever it is. I would format the introduction. And it sounds like your kid is high-functioning enough to have that level of language and so on. You can also prompt it. You can also write down the sentence and teach the child by just, if your child is able to recognize words, which a lot of our kids like this are.
Yeah.
So, and then when it's song or music, then I would just say, introduce it with something like, you know that song that goes blah, 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 or, so find appropriate contextual things that you can add to the beginning of this, and then at the same time, you know, teach your child how to transition away from it.
Okay.
So, and the way that you do that is you literally will start with a very obvious cue, like as soon as he starts telling you about it, you'll say, hold on, and you'll set a timer, right? Or an egg timer is even better because then they can see the thing. And during the process of the egg timer, like maybe make it a minute timer or less, then he can talk about that. But when it's over, then he needs to have a transition out way. And it's a very, like, you want to make sure it's a very clear visual, like a stopwatch, stop and start and stop time. And then gradually you'll hide the visual, you'll reduce the visual, you'll maybe give him other ways to track how long he's doing that.
We did fingers, that he could say 3 things about a video game, and I was doing the fingers, and then he was doing the fingers.
I totally remember this. And then I do remember that too. And then the other thing is that later on you can also tack the sort of the ending activity or the ending, like when the time runs out, you will then teach your child a transitional off statement. So like, okay, let's, and then, or an attention statement thing, like this is now time to attend to body language now. Right. I've said the 3 things, what's my reaction? Like that's the kind of thing you want to do. You need to take, where do I go now? I've said the 3 things, what's my next move?
Now, see, that's the piece I haven't done. That's the piece where I need to get to. Isn't that interesting that we're all like at different places on this continuum? Yeah. But
so for Jam's level, you really would just point out, now look for a reaction in the person.
Yeah.
Because that's what will guide you to the next thing that's appropriate to do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what our kids are missing is just that ability to quickly modify their behavior based on the reaction.
Yeah.
In fact, that's a good lesson. I should write that. Some sort of alternation of responses and having our child become very fluent on different types of things.
I
Can I
didn't
use
give you a pen today.
That's
Normally
okay.
I give her a pen and a pad.
I just get so many ideas
Yes,
here, yeah.
Okay, well, great. And so a great place for you to start in terms of teaching this. But my question now, I cycle back to when it's happening in the moment, while he's teaching it, how does this dad react in the moment most effectively?
I mean, I think that you immediately have to start with some form of timer. That's the very first thing you do, is that you do limit the time frame immediately, because otherwise it'll be happening. And perhaps not only the time frame, but the number of times in the day. So you'll have a chart. I mean, I don't know how frequently it's happening. First, you get a baseline, obviously.
Okay.
Let's assume it's happening 10 times a day, and each time it goes on endlessly unless you stop it. So you will say that your baseline is 10. You want to focus on reducing, stopping it when the buzzer goes, right? As soon as he starts, you turn on a timer.
Okay.
Make sure he realizes they're going parallel to each other.
Okay.
When you buzz, you tell him, okay, it's time to stop, and that's when you redirect him to something else really fast.
Okay.
And get him busy with something else, right? And
then
by the way,
we reward when he's busy with something else and not doing it, or do we reward the transition?
You reward all of it. This is non-contingent reward at this point, because when you have good control on the child, like when you're directly intervening, involved in intervention with a child, you're supposed to, I mean, the best type of therapy, obviously, is not to ever wait for the child to make a mistake, right? The idea is always to be one step ahead of the child in terms of prompting him, so he's always correct, and then reinforcing. So you're constantly reinforcing. So it actually appears like it's not even contingent on anything, because it's a ongoing reinforcer. I'm working on French with my son right now, a lot of French, like, infusing him in it. And honestly, like, he'll make 2 or 3 mistakes and then he'll have a correct. And I'm constantly just, even on the mistakes, I'm like, that was really good trying, though. You got it almost right. That was perfect. Like, the experience has to be very, very positive anyway. But so the first thing I think is to set that timer and get him used to the timer. And then it's to reduce the amount of time in the timer. And then it's to reduce the number of sessions during the day. And every time you do this, someone has to be there, because you have to redirect to some other activity. And by the way, an activity that would be incompatible is probably best. So, for instance, I don't know if he's good at talking about other things. Like, if you can ask him things that he's actually accurate on, like, what's your name, where do you live, what's your phone number, how old are you, whatever it is, other labels. And so, because talking is going to be incompatible with saying that stuff. Right? Other things might be incompatible as well. Like, a lot of our kids don't do the repetitive out of context stuff if they're busy with, like, let's say drawing or painting or something they really like.
Or even blowing bubbles would be
blowing bubbles is a great
because you have to blow, you can't be scripting.
Absolutely.
Okay. So great ideas there. Wonderful. I'm going to move on to this next question that came in on the Facebook. They wrote in and said, hey, Shannon and Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. They gave their name. I'm going to leave that out. She's from Mississippi. She has Asperger's syndrome. I'm trying to find resources for adults on the autism spectrum who want to live independently. But there's hardly any resources here in Mississippi for adults on the spectrum. I went to vocational rehabilitation, but it didn't help me gain employment. I have difficulty with housekeeping and taking care of myself. My parents are afraid to let me live on my own without them, but I'm 20 years old and need to try to not depend on them for everything. I don't know what I would do without them. Also, I was in a huge car wreck a while back and it almost killed me and my mom. Now my mom and dad are afraid to let me try driving ever again. They don't even want to talk about the thought of me driving again. What should I do to convince my parents to let me be independent? What resources can you recommend?
I love this person. Oh my God, I love you. You're the best.
And how articulate is she? This is lovely. You're a beautiful writer.
Once in a while, we'll get an email like that from one of the very, very high functioning individuals out there, just asking for help, and those are the ones that just touch me the most. We have developed about, I want to say, somewhere close to 200 videos for teaching adults adaptive, vocational, a variety of tasks. Everything from, I think, preparing food to jobs, various activities that are involved in jobs. And we're in the process right now of putting those videos on a website so that the public can consume them. Because it seems to be rather urgent for you, I would suggest that you, have they sent in their email information?
I am friends with this particular person on Facebook because we started a friendship, so I know how to reach
so the
this
person, great. So the person, Shannon here, is Sarah Cho's project,
Yes.
but Katie Gibney, you know Katie?
I have met Katie once, yes.
Yeah. So Katie is basically developing all of those programs and videos, and she's both Sarah and Katie are very, very passionate about helping our adults.
Yes.
So this is part of our adult program now. So if you could reach out to Katie, and we'd be happy to, maybe she could have a conversation with this individual and send them copies of whatever videos are interesting to them for free, and just let her get started on something that might be useful.
Okay, great. And
But
then,
you're in Mississippi. There's not a whole lot in Mississippi, unfortunately, but maybe we can assist just getting you through some of these things.
Well, and here's my question for you. Are you in a school where you're getting credits where you can do an internship? Because I could, if that's the case, I can only take an intern who is somebody who is in a college doing credits, but I could use an intern to do social networking, and you clearly are somebody who has skills that would lend itself well to that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
You and I could certainly talk about that as well, if that's something you're interested in, but you have to be getting college credit in order to be able to be eligible for that. So
and don't get too sad about the driving thing. I would let it go for a little while. I think your parents might be more open to it once you've developed some other skills as well and some time has passed. And there's a lot more you can do to practice driving even prior to actually getting back out there.
And even, I will say this, a lot of people don't drive.
A lot of people don't drive.
You don't need to drive to get around in the world.
Probably in Mississippi, a lot of people do drive, though. I mean, if you lived in New York, nobody drives.
Right.
So
and in LA, most people drive, but I know people in LA without a car who take the buses and go everywhere in LA.
Sure.
I know people who, I know a screenwriter that I could list 5 films that he has made that you would be like, oh, I know who that is, and he doesn't drive. Yeah. He said, when I was like 21, I realized I don't want to do this. This is
That's amazing.
So he just doesn't drive.
Period.
Period. And he made up his mind that was not going to be something he wanted to do. So it's not one of those things that you have to necessarily do.
Right.
But for the so as you said, let it go for the moment. Maybe it will happen later on. But if it doesn't, life can go on without.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break, and thank you for writing in, by the way. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with more questions with Dr. Grampshay. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, proud autism mom and the host of Autism Live. Autism Live is an interactive web show whose mission is to provide a free resource to the entire autism community and to the world at large. Whether you're watching our live shows on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, or you're catching up on our free podcasts on YouTube, iTunes, and Roku, we want to provide you with the support you need when you need it, and to give you a little hope and inspiration along the way too. For the mom in Kansas whose child has just been diagnosed and she's preparing for her first IEP meeting, we want to provide you with helpful resources to make that meeting as productive and as stress-free as possible. For the 16-year-old in Bangor who writes to us and wants to know, how do you get friends and keep them? We want to give you support and information to make that possible for you. For the teacher in Calgary who wants to know, how do you get past the challenging behavior and help a child to be excited to learn? We want to give you access to tools and education to make that dream a reality. And for the dad in Wyoming whose daughter is engaging in self-injurious behavior, we want to get you access to experts who can help you to keep your daughter safe and to turn that equation around. We know that autism isn't one size fits all. And we know that sometimes you need resources, and sometimes you just need to know that somebody is listening. We are. We know from the letters that we get from our viewers every day that we can and are making a difference. And frankly, that just makes us want to do more. In our hope and vision, we have so many things that we want to do at Autism Live, like providing a weekly global peer parent support group, educational programs that are designed specifically for children on the autism spectrum, fun and interactive social and vocational programs for our young adults, and resources and information for pregnant women and for women who are about to be pregnant so they can significantly lower their risk of having a child with more disabling aspects of autism. We can do this. We want you to know that we're fighting hard every day to stay on the air and to be a free resource for you, but we can't do it alone. Right now, we're working hard to identify corporations and foundations and individuals who want to support us in this mission, who want to help us to help you. So join us. Watch the show, ask questions, sign up for our free newsletter, and share what you find here freely. It's important that you do. Autism Live, where knowledge is power and hope is our favorite four-letter word. Welcome back to Let's. What is wrong with me today?
You know what, Shan, is because I don't have my earplug in.
And that's what's off?
And I keep talking with you, not knowing that show is about to start.
Every once in a while, I have a day where I get, and I get entitled to that, right? Where I get a day where I'm just left of center. I'm left of center today, and I'm just admitting it. So I just said, welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. That's not what's happening now. What's happening now, this is Autism Live, and we're here with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet for Ask Dr. Doreen. And you guys are writing in. We've been answering questions on Facebook thus far, and I want to go to a question here on the live feature. Now, I'm pretty sure that this all goes together, but let's see, because I was trying to follow the sense. Somebody said, I need a BCBA yesterday. This is an expression that I use all the time. The school is not working with the concepts of autism. If I don't have the information, what am I going to do? That's a single mom, and she says, I have the cutting edge of therapies. I have skills. She said they have paid for 9 months of it and that they haven't actually been able to get to it. This is her saying, I've not been able to get to it due to using Linda Mood Bell first to show that she can learn. But now mom is saying that she does need a clinical BCBA and that there's none in her area. What can she do? She's given us a phone number.
Do we know what state it is?
I'm looking to see. I don't see a state. So if you're still watching, I know you wrote this in a little bit earlier this morning. If you're still watching, write us in right now and tell us what state you're in.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, I just wanted to know because this is
look up the area code.
Right. These are sometimes when I see parents who are trying to do a lot of different things. Those are the cases where I really want to see the child because I'll tell you what to do in the right order. Sometimes we get really overwhelmed and try to just take on too much. And then we do things in the wrong order, and then we're wasting time, we're wasting the child's time, or we're not taking advantage of the child's age and abilities. Linda Mood Bell programs are appropriate for some kids, not all. Skills is not something that would conflict with Linda Mood Bell, so you should start with skills anyway. It's an assessment. That's the biggest portion. I think the biggest thing you need is to have a very detailed assessment of your child so you can determine what the areas of need, the most significant areas of need are. So don't just worry about things that you've seen. Do the skills index. It will give you a very clear picture.
Arkansas.
Oh, okay. Oh, Arkansas is one of those places where we really want to do something, actually, because if I'm not wrong, Arkansas does have a mandate and actually has coverage. Now,
and we're talking the Little Rock area, according to the area code.
Right.
If that's correct.
Right. So I would, in order to give you assistance, I mean, first of all, I think you should definitely do the skills index because it will really give you a good idea of what your child's areas of need are, the most significant areas of need. And really, I know you are aware of a lot of the areas yourself just subjectively, but skills will organize it for you and will point out things you never even thought of. then that will help determine what different things you should be doing. In terms of a BCBA, you just have to go on our website, contact our remote services department, and our website is Center for Autism and Related Disorders, or CARD, or whatever, you look it up, centerforautism.com, and you will see a section, a tab called Remote Services, and if you go in there and send in information, then your information will be picked up, and somebody will contact you, and they will send you a bunch of paperwork for your child so that we can get some basic history and information, and then we will give you a supervisor. And if you can, the cost for the family is transportation to and from, so you would be flying the supervisor in and putting them up in a hotel, but they will come to you, assess everything, set up all the programs, train people in your local area, like could be high school students or post-high school people, and then oversee the program, keep coming back every few months, see you through FaceTime, and be able to stay in contact and move your child's program forward continuously. We've done these programs for years and years now. I have kids who've recovered through this modality, so it's a very doable thing. If you have insurance in Arkansas, if you have insurance that covers your child, we will access the insurance, no problem, because what we do is we hire the therapists in your area and they work for us. The director of this remote services program is John Galley. I've given out his name a few times. He must love me for that. But I would I would really suggest that you get in touch with our remote services department. They're very, very helpful.
Okay, she goes on to write more. All of that was great information and useful to her, but I think we're going to want to talk about some more stuff because they're specifically having a problem at school.
Okay.
She says that her pediatrician, and she's trying to figure out what to do with the school situation. Her pediatrician typically expects her to form a letter. So fine, but it needs punch and allows protection for my pediatrician and for my child and for me. They were directed to this site, but at the time when she got here, we were talking about another topic. She says school does not really know what to do and is only getting worse, and they are only protecting themselves, not telling me what I need to know in a way that matters. And she says that they're wanting her to put her daughter on a bus at 5:30 in the morning to return home at 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night to do homework. She says sending to LR, which I don't know what that is, and she says, where or how will she bond? Okay, and there's a couple of things here that I'm not completely understanding. She says, have they offered this yet? No. Others fish for answers. So I think this is just sort of the runaround that she's getting at school. She said, I say a clinical BCBA who understands the global concerns, but can they do what is necessary on the school scene when she is there as much as she has to be legally? They have created chaos. They have given reinforcers that are causing more harm than helping. They seem to have the avoidance behaviors too. I have to get to work, not really sure how I can meet my needs. If the person cannot be globally assessed either. What can I do to get it all on the table? So, I feel for you because you're in that moment where you feel like the school doesn't know what's happening. You want to get something happening at school. They're wanting her to be at school from 5:30 in the morning till 6:30 between bus rides.
Right, that would not fly in an IEP. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't even know the child's age. But again, what I sense from your email is there's a massive amount of chaos around you right now, and you are having a hard time dealing with all of it. And I would too, if I were you, because there are so many issues and they're not organized. I would really start by organizing what is most important, which is why I kind of said do the skills index. Now, let's step back even further from that and say there are certain things that are legal matters that you're dealing with right now. There are certain things that have to do with, your child's, I guess, comfort and just being able, adaptive environment, and then there's some stuff that have to do with just content that you want to teach your child. So, you know, no child should have to be on the bus for that early and that late. No child should have to be on school grounds that many hours, period.
And Kelby has clarified that LR stands for Little Rock.
Little Rock.
So they're having to bus her into Little Rock to get her into classes. That's part of the issue.
Right. So, and you know, the Americans with Disabilities Act has a section called Free and Appropriate Education, which basically means if they're not providing your child with what's appropriate at no cost to you, then they need to pay someone to do it. I don't care where that is. In California, a lot of families get funding for these types of things under FAPE, Free and Appropriate Education Act, but it applies to every state. I would find a special education attorney. That's the first thing I would do, is I would find a special education lawyer. You know, you have a fantastic group of physicians who deal with autism in Arkansas. Obviously, Dr. Richard Fry, Dr. Jill James, these guys are in Arkansas, and they're the top of the top in medicine for autism. And I would start by contacting them as well, because they might have some connections to behavioral agencies or some resources for you. They might know some good lawyers in the area and so on. There are 2 centers, I believe one is in Little Rock. But separate the issues, maybe perhaps get some help from some family members right now, because you're going to need to deal with legal stuff. A lot of parents here, and Shannon will say this as well, we're very, very anxious to get things going for our kids, but until you fix the legal stuff around it, it just continues to be a mess. So you need to have a lawyer who will represent you at an IEP, where you can get things sorted out first. So you will then have perhaps, you know, maybe the answer for your child, depending on where you live, is homeschooling, where someone needs to be paying for a therapist to teach your child the things they need. Maybe, you know, they have other arrangements. Maybe they have to actually produce transportation for your child that will not result in that long of a period of time. I don't really know why she's in school that long. Maybe so the state has to provide you with aftercare. I don't know a lot of these things. Maybe you're working and that's why she's there. I really don't know. But a special education lawyer will be very helpful to organize all of that. And then when you start wanting to worry about what to teach, then you go to skills, and that will guide you.
Okay, so just to recap some of the things, you know, one of the first things you got to take care of is the legal mess in this.
Yes, you do.
We don't know based on everything that's happening, but you know, we hear the concern about how much time she's spending away, and I'm concerned about how much time on a bus. That's not good for anybody.
No.
So taking care of your legal issues, reaching out to the autism community there, making sure that you get some good resources and support, because you've written several times that you're a single mom and that you're working. And
right.
so
that sounds very tough.
Full plate right there.
Very
so
tough.
You need to get some help and support, and that skills can be helping you. I will say this: we've heard really great reports about Linda Mood Bell, and that's a wonderful thing. But I happen to know it's one of the more expensive things you can do.
And it's also one program. In other words, it only really deals with one facet or one series of deficits and issues. Your child will need a lot more than what Linda Mood Bell is providing. It's like working on handwriting, for instance. It's one thing.
So, you know, I hear you, though, when you say that you did Linda Mood Bell because you wanted to be able to show her and yourself and everybody else that she had the ability. So I definitely hear that. But I think that skills and taking that assessment is going to help you and getting in contact with your autism community so that you can get the support that you need and get a great BCBA working on your case and helping you to drive what's happening at school.
And also, yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Shannon. I mean, I think you should also perhaps try to see if there is a local FEAT, you know, Families for Early Autism Treatment. Because it sounds like you really need some personal support.
Yeah.
You know, this is
everybody does.
Everybody does, and if you have a child on the spectrum and you're alone, you really do. And so please get some support for yourself as one of the primary things as well.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
Abstract.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet, and she is answering your questions live here on the air. You have the opportunity to be writing in on our live feature at autism-live.com or on our Facebook page. You can also be tweeting us. I'm going to take one that's on our live feature that came in this morning. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My 4-year-old son has tons of words and talks in 4 to 5 word sentences. Many times he uses up to 8 words in his sentences to request or when he's trying to tell us something. He is in an autism ABA based school 25 hours a week, and it's one-on-one all the time, which I know is good for him. And he's getting 10 hours of ABA at home plus OT and speech. Now my question is, when should I start seeing him starting to make conversation on his own, since he has so many words and uses them all day, every day? He can answer so many questions, but barely ever initiates them or any conversation. He's such a bright little boy. He can read more than 10 words and write them too. He's a letter lover, ha ha ha. He knows his ABCs back and front and even makes them with his hands. So I'm just wondering when he'll bless us with him making conversation with us. Thank you guys for all that you do. God bless all of you, Dr. Nadowski, Dr. Tarbox, Dr. Doreen, and of course you, Shannon. Hugs to you. And you said you hugs make my week just more. Bless. So
you have a child who has the potential to actually have a typically normal life and come out of the spectrum. Without knowing him personally from all the things that you wrote, my children who are like this always make it, but it is very, very important that you do the right things at the right time. And I don't know who your program is. I don't know what your school is, and I don't know what your program provider is, your ABA program. So, and I don't know how long you've been in ABA, but I would be very relaxed about this if I knew that my staff was working with you, because the program we have guides you to definitely start going to initiation of conversation. You have now, since you have a school and an ABA program at home, I really, really want you to go on skills. I really want you to use skills. I want your BCBA or whoever's in charge of your program to use skills to guide them. Please do that. Please do that, because most people out there, most schools and programs and BCBAs don't know how to teach these types of very subtle things. They haven't spent a lot of time developing curriculum. They'll start teaching rote things, which is fine because that's level 1 programming, but once you go to like more advanced levels which your child needs, then it's a lot of cognitive behavioral stuff going on, and you really have to have the child think through things. You have to have the child initiate conversations, for instance, and to be able to identify cues in the environment that help him know when to initiate conversations. And these are lessons we have in skills. So if you have a good program leader, a supervisor, BCBA, and you first go into skills and you answer the several thousand questions that are in there about your child, and that'll produce a very, very good profile of your child, a developmental profile that'll tell you every area that he or she is delayed in, and or is beyond their age as well, excessive and deficient. And then it'll kind of guide you in terms of the things that the child still needs to learn. It'll tell you what they are and how to teach them. So your supervisor can use that information. And so, for instance, they'll look and say, okay, your child's able to say 8-word sentences in some cases, demanding. How do I get him to spontaneous conversation? And the program will guide them completely, step by step. It's a lot more than you think. There's a lot of things there. But your child sounds like they have all the tools necessary to get there. So it really is just about the appropriate guidance. And really all I can tell you right now that would be helpful is to become a member on Skills. It'll guide you through the whole process. It'll guide your supervisor through the whole process.
Okay.
And make sure your school and your home program communicates with each other, and that they're one and they're consistent, so your child doesn't get mixed messages.
Okay, wonderful. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Hi, welcome to Camp Discovery, a free-to-play suite of fun, interactive learning games for kids 2 and up, designed by experts in autism. Camp Discovery will open your early learner to a world of new skills, shapes, numbers, colors, locations, emotions, and more. Let's get started.
Please choose a level.
Objects. First, Camp Discovery's Intelligent Preference Assessment determines your child's preferred reward for choosing correctly. Okay, got it. Let's play. Camp Discovery creates a motivating learning environment for your child by minimizing incorrect responses and maximizing successful ones.
Find the shoes.
Respond correctly and your child is rewarded with their favorite animations.
You did it.
Respond incorrectly and our unique prompting system guides your child to the correct answer by making it the largest choice.
That's not it. Try again. Way to go.
Continue to answer correctly and the size gradually reduces until the child makes the correct choice independently.
You win.
Success! Rewards motivate learning. Complete a round and your child is rewarded with a fun mini-game. Track your child's progress with easy-to-read graphs. Multiple settings options allow you to customize Camp Discovery to your child's unique needs. All this in one single app, the Camp Discovery app, available for free on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon Store.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet. She's answering your questions right now. We have been had talked about last week a sound-sensitive 13-year-old. They sent in a couple of follow-ups that he's startled by everyday on and off sounds when the air conditioner turns on or off, when the temperature changes, or the toaster oven or the water boiler. But he isn't aware of the appliance being turned on. If he isn't aware of it being turned on, he's fine. Sometimes we attend, sometimes we don't even see it. He's nervous if we see. And then she went on to write.
So I'm sorry, Shannon. He's turning them on and off.
No,
I didn't understand.
No,
that.
but if they go over and he sees them turn on the toaster oven, that's when he's having a reaction to it. But if he doesn't see, and then it sounds like to me the reaction is more about them than the thing, because if they do it and he doesn't see it, then
the sound
he's fine.
isn't bothering him.
And
right.
and when he sees their reaction, that's the thing that bothers. She goes on to say that they did the FBA on skills. When it happens because of anxiety, that you had given them some advice and that they're going to work on. But their question is, when it happens as escape/control, non-compliance, or wanting to hear no, he covers his ears and can pair with verbal sounds to block out sound. And how should she intervene when that happens? She says, what do we do then?
Okay, all of those things are different functions.
Okay.
So you just go back to the BIP Builder, do CFA. I don't know if you've done the indirect functional assessment.
She says that they did the FBA on
Okay,
skills, which
that's
I believe
CFA.
is the
That is
CFA.
CFA. So that should take you to the BIP Builder, because each of those, when someone does something in order to escape, you don't let them escape. When someone does something in order to gain attention, you don't give them attention. When they do something in order to gain access to a tangible, you don't give them access. So essentially, what they are trying to gain by the inappropriate behavior, you take away. And then you give it to them, you give them what they're trying to gain for appropriate behavior. So because you listed a whole bunch of different functions, they all have different things you should do. So again, I think the BIP Builder kind of lists all of those things.
And I will tell you, if you have the time, and I realize that not everybody has the time, but one of the things I did when I first started to play with the BIP Builder was I took a behavior that my son was doing.
You plug it in.
And I plugged it in with all of the different functions.
Right.
To see what each of the different things said. And I learned so much from that.
Yes, yes.
Because it was so specific to my child, and I was able to compare and go, oh, well, it opened my eyes, and I don't even remember what the behavior was, but I remember looking at one point, it was saying, you know, that you would want to do this and not do that, and I went, oh, that's the exact opposite of what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And but being able to look and compare, to put it in for all the functions, it takes a couple of minutes to be able to do that, but it was really eye-opening for me.
Yes.
If you've got the time to do it, it's kind of fascinating.
And then, of course, for each function, you get about 20 suggestions.
Right.
So don't reject any of them, accept all of them, and go through and look at them and say which one is more feasible for you to carry out.
But it was also interesting because sometimes my problem was that the thing that I was thinking I needed to do, I couldn't do in the location that was happening. So I was able to weed those things out and see things that I hadn't thought of.
That's a great idea.
Which was really kind of cool. It was
very good.
It was kind of a fascinating.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you know when you go to a makeup place and they say if your skin tone is this color, and you turn a wheel and it says this color lipstick and this color, and you go, really, I had no idea. It was kind of like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's very, very useful. I mean, it's really going to help you if you slow down and just use the features of it. Yeah. It does sound very clearly that he's not reacting to sound, but he's reacting to what he sees.
Yeah.
So, you know, it has something to do with you.
Well, the good thing about that, you know, I always think, I mean, sometimes things happen that are driving us crazy, but there's a little kernel of it that's like a really strong skill.
Oh, yeah.
The good thing about that is that the joint attention has got to be really strong if that's what he's noticing, which is going to be good later on for social skills.
Definitely. And also, you always want it to be something external anyway. Like, if he's reacting to you, that means he is either seeking your attention, trying to upset you, or whatever it is. That is much better than dealing with sound sensitivity.
Right.
I mean, let me tell you.
Because you can harness this.
Yeah, exactly. Sound sensitivity is a hard one, you know, to deal with. So this is a lot easier to deal with, but it has to do with, generally, this is typical behavior of our kids just trying to get a reaction. But, you know, do the BIP Builder and go through every single one. They have different functions. Different functions will have different ways to intervene.
Okay. Well, we already did that one, so I'm not going to go to that one. I've got so many other different things here. Okay. Somebody who's wanting to know, how can I have some help setting up play dates?
Right, play dates are...
For 4-year-olds.
I know, it's kind of hard. Do they say boy or girl? Or
boy.
Generally speaking, there's several different aspects to play dates that you should think about. One is, well, first of all, you know, you're going to be looking at neighbors or family members. That would be your number one thing, would be family members. I would tend to go for family members first. And you are looking for, believe it or not, a slightly older girl as the ideal play date. So if your son is 4, you're looking for, let's say, a 6-7-year-old girl. And if you can find that person, because the 6- and 7-year-old girls are more like teachers, and they really like having a little person to take around and teach.
You know, I always have names for everything. You guys talk about things and it's all very nice, and I always have a name in the back of my brain, and I call this the bossy gut girl.
Oh, totally.
Because that's what we all need, and I was a bossy gut girl. The girl who just orders everybody around, and, and every single classroom has at least one bossy gut girl.
Those are the best kids, though, because they're like, they're intrinsically they're therapists.
Yes.
That's what they are. And they get a sense of satisfaction from teaching your child or whatever they want. So you'll try to find somebody like that. I mean, you know, if your child's very young, so I doubt they're already in school, maybe they're in preschool. Talk to the teachers. They often have guidance on this. If you don't have access to that, then I would start by looking at, you know, cousins, neighbors, etc. You know, it's funny, one of our John Galley, again, whose name comes up all the time, one of our director of remote services, had the idea of actually providing a service that would do this, that would would give you access to other kids, so that you could do, you know, parents could put their kids up for play dates and you could rotate. But it is a very hard concept. It's a very difficult thing, and I think maybe one approach is to go take your child to outside activity like gym, or, you know, places where there are group activities going on where you get to meet other parents, and give other parents a chance to get to know your child before you request play dates. That's a tough one. And and those are the things.
It's a day-to-day thing, and you do the best you can.
And you know, I wouldn't worry about it too. I mean, your child's pretty young, like 4-year-old. It's not so late. Like, you should really be working right now, focusing most of the time on teaching core skills before you do a lot of play dates. Like at 4, you're really still pretty much teaching a lot of language, teaching social skills one-on-one, and then you take those skills that have been mastered and practice them with play dates.
Okay, we had a couple of people respond to some of the things we've been saying earlier. The person that you said, I don't know who your services are with, that was doing well, she said, hi, unfortunately we're not with CARD. She said, I'll try skills. I once tried skills a few weeks ago and was really overwhelmed by it and had no idea what I was doing, but he's been doing ABA for almost a year now, and they're in New Jersey. I just want to say to you, I'm going to do a show soon about how I use skills, but if you ever need some help, it's one of my favorite things to do, is to show skills to another parent and really pair through all the stuff. The thing about skills that I always say is, it's like saying to somebody, here's the internet.
I know, it's really hard.
And like in the beginning, you don't know how you want to use it, and then you find a way that you like to use it, and then a friend says, oh, I use it to do this, and you go, really? You can do that too? Like we all were with our smartphones. You don't have to use all of the features on skills. You and I have a conversation about what you want it to be able to do, and I'll show you how to do that, and then get to know that, and then you can branch out into other things.
That's a very nice offer. I really appreciate that for this family. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that for you.
And also, you have an ABA provider. Get your ABA provider on skills, because some of the lingo is very technical. I apologize. I know. You know what, I often regret having done this. Sangam, you know, managing here, makes fun of me and says, you spent like 16 years complicating this thing, and now you're trying to uncomplicate it, you know, which is true. I just kept trying to make it more and more complete, right? Yes. And so it became kind of a crazy document. I don't like it myself. It's in line to try to simplify the user interface, because it's very complex and full. It's a very, very full thing. Yes. So I would really suggest that you take Shannon up on this offer, because that's a fantastic offer. But then I would also try to get your supervisor involved with it. You know, the majority of our users are professionals, our supervisors, who use skills in order to guide them for the next level.
Absolutely. So give me a call. And she also wanted you to know that you made her day today when you said that her son is in line to be in the best possible case. Yeah. And she said, yay, tears of joy right now. Thank you so much. That
for sure. Just hearing the things that you know, I know. Going well. Yes, you have a very high functioning, high potential child. It's just a matter of doing the right things.
And the person about the covering ears wrote in and said, thanks for taking my question on the covering ears. He's reacting when he is aware of the sound. If he doesn't know the machine is on, he won't react, but more knee-jerk reaction. She said, thank you, ladies, and I'll work harder on the BIP. I don't want you to work harder. I want you to play. I want you to go in and play with it.
Yeah.
No hard work.
And test something out, by the way. Separate the two typographies. So right now you've tested out that he won't react if the sound is there alone. You've tested that he reacts when the sound and the visual are there. Test out what he does if just the visual is there. So go there and pretend to turn on the toaster. Don't. Go through all the motions so it makes no sound. But I want to see if he reacts.
Okay.
So then you'll know if, you know, what is it? He might react to that because it is the visual. It's the aspect of you doing it. And if not, then it's the combination that you need to deal with.
Okay. And we'll hear back from you next week. And somebody else wrote in and said that smile.amazon.com for Act Today is now bookmarked as my go-to Amazon site. Thank you for answering and sharing your experiences, always learning. All of you can do that. You know, when you go to smile.amazon.com, you have the opportunity to choose from a plethora of different 501c3 charities that you can give to, and one of them is Autism Care and Treatment Today. And if you check that one off, every time you go to Amazon after that, a little prompt will come up and say, hey, you have the opportunity to go to the Smile site, and anything you buy, a percentage of what you buy will go to Act Today. It doesn't cost you anything. It's an opportunity for you to put funding in families' hands to get iPads, to get fencing, to get everything under the sun.
Yeah.
So many families who need this so desperately. You know, just to mention a couple of things: our military families, our families from our underserved populations, our families that are struggling with self-injurious behavior, families that need an iPad so their child can speak and be heard.
Right.
So,
and Nancy will speak more of this, but she and I often say we've basically tapped out all our friends. Nobody wants to even talk to us anymore because, like, we really need help. We have a lot of families asking for help, and we don't even come close to serving all their needs.
And Amazon, smile.amazon.com is a great way to do it. It doesn't cost you anything, and every time you buy something from Amazon, you'll tap into the billions that are there for Amazon to have them give to the charity that you choose. We hope that you'll choose Act Today, but pick something. Don't just buy something on Amazon ever again. It's a great way to give. We're out of time.
Yes.
That hour flew by, but I appreciate you so much for all that you share with us. We're going to take a quick break here and go to the A word. We're going to be back for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Those of you who are just tuning in, we are going to be showing that entire interview that we did with Dr. Bob Sears. This is something that you really want to see. A lot's being said. He was the title, the headline in the LA Times on Sunday was Heretic, which is very incendiary. And then there was an editorial today in the LA Times. We're going to talk about all of that. But first, here is the A word.
Do you think Jack knows what's happening today?
Not a clue. We asked him where the baby was, and sometimes he points here, and sometimes he just points here and says belly button. So he's either getting a baby sister or a belly button. He's not sure.
Good. This one. It's a rooster. Yeah. Another one. Sure. Which one do you want? Both. Okay. Here you go.
Jessica gave Jack Riley a partial vocal prompt to get him to ask instead of demand the puzzle from her. Last week, she had to prompt him by saying,
Say, can I? Sure.
But now she only makes the sound to get him to ask. Eventually, he will need no prompting.
Case. Case?
Yes, I want case.
Case. Yes, you can. There you go. Should we dance and sing? Should we sing head, shoulders, knees, and toes? And yeah? Okay, let's sing the song first, though. Sing song first. Ready? Head. Head. Sing first, and then Dumbo. Sing first.
Now that Jack Riley has language, he negotiates with Jessica instead of tantruming or crying like he would have.
Eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Good. Head, shoulders, knees and toes. Whoa! You almost ate there. Yeah, you finished the song. Okay, come here. Whee! Whoa! It's like you're Superman, huh? It's like you're Superman. Come here. Come here. Thank you. Sit down. No. No. Jack Riley. No, look at my eyes. No, sit down chair. No, sit down chair. No, sit down chair. No. Jack Riley, you need to sit down chair. Thank you. Oh. Thanks. Good boy. High fives for good sitting. Thank you.
What happened?
That I was actually reading notes from other therapists that are on his team that he's been non-compliant when it comes to sitting in the chair. But right now it just seemed like he didn't want to do it because you asked him to do it, or I asked him to do it. And then I was prompting him to sit in the chair. But then once I just backed off, he sat on his own, like it's on his own terms, basically. But I didn't want him to get away with, if I asked him to do something, he has to do it. And that applies to when I ask him to do other things too, so that he doesn't learn that if I just ask him something and don't follow through, then I don't have to listen to Jessica. I'll just listen to her whenever I feel like it.
Right.
And he's been really exercising just because he can vocalize what he wants now. He wants it every time he asks for something, and then if you don't give it to him, then that's what happens. I do want him to learn that just because he asks nicely doesn't mean he'll get everything every time.
Are you excited? You excited?
He's sleeping.
Are you sleeping?
So what time are you going to leave, Mike?
We have OT at 11.
Oh, you still have OT today?
Yeah.
Can I get close?
Yeah, well, that's the life of that's our life now.
Let's go back out.
I'm going to go, I got to go take a shower because we're going to have a baby. See you later.
Later.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism.
Shannon Penrod, we're thrilled to be here.
We are. And Shannon, there is a lot going on. The autism world is buzzing on many different fronts. We're going to talk a little bit more later in the show about the teen being identified that did the cruel prank with the ice bucket challenge.
Yes.
We also have two very special guests here.
Yes.
Kathy Alonso and Ava Lund from Special Spirits, which is an amazing program that I am very connected to. And we'll talk about that connection and their program for helping children with autism with equine therapy.
Love it.
And first, though, we are going to air in entirety the interview that we did on what day? Monday. Yes, with Dr. Bob Sears, who is he's really in a firestorm of attention.
He's it's funny how everything sort of shifts, how a storm can move from one epicenter to another. We've seen that with a couple of stories this week. And of course, you know, the story came out that there was a CDC whistleblower. The story kind of grew and gathered steam. Dr. Bob Sears wrote an article that appeared in the Real Help Now Taka blog. And I was impressed with how concise it was, how really, to me, it was a voice of reason.
The voice of reason.
And then the LA Times did an article because that article was picking up a lot of heat. And in the title, the title was Vaccine Heretic.
Yes. Which was pretty incendiary, as we thought, because we see him as having the balanced approach.
Right.
And
so we interviewed him on Monday.
About that. And then today, in the LA Times, the top editorial, vaccination doubters are endangering more than their own children. And pretty much blasting Dr. Sears for his stance on allowing parents to space out the vaccines. And if they have extreme concerns, to not do them, but he is not anti-vaccine.
No. And you'll see that in this interview.
You'll see it in the interview. So a lot of controversy. Let's take a look at the interview. I think it speaks for itself.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have a very special guest who is joining us via Skype right now, Dr. Bob Sears, who is a very respected pediatrician, well-known author of the vaccine book, Making the Right Decisions for Your Child, which was published in October of 2007. And he also serves on the Physician Advisory Board of TACA. We're so thrilled to have him here today. He recently wrote a blog for TACA's Real Help Now blog site. You can find it at tacanowblog.com. It is entitled CDC Vaccine and Autism Research, Explosive New Statement from a Lead Researcher. It has gotten quite a bit of attention, including a piece in the LA Times over the weekend.
Yes, and welcome, Dr. Sears, on behalf of me and Shannon.
Right, thanks, Nancy. It's good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you. Dr. Bob, did you have any idea that you were going to end up on the front page of the LA Times, no less, labeled a heretic?
No, I know. Yeah, the heretic label is very interesting. I would have loved to see the headline read, vaccination heretic, maybe with a question mark or something, you know, at the end of it. It was a good piece. I think it was a very neutral piece. It kind of presented, you know, my ideas very fairly and accurately. So yeah, I was very happy to be on.
All right, well, maybe we should back up for a second and talk about how this came to be. You wrote this article in TACA. For people who haven't been completely up to speed, can you consolidate for us what it was that happened that caused you to write this article?
Yeah, basically, in a nutshell, one of the large research studies done by the CDC about 12 years ago that revealed no link between MMR vaccine and autism. One of the researchers in that study sort of blew the whistle or came forward and disclosed to another researcher that they had hidden some of the data in the study. That basically some of the children in the study that demonstrated a higher risk of autism from the MMR vaccine, they removed those children from the study after they had collected all the data. More specifically, they found a group of African American boys who received the MMR vaccine had about 3 times higher the risk of developing autism from the vaccine compared to the general population. And this researcher, he wasn't very happy, you know, by the way they excluded those data from the study, but he kind of kept it to himself. He didn't come forward, and the study was published, you know, as you all know, showing no link between the vaccines and autism. Finally, the doctor came forward, showed some other researchers the data, who were then finally able to publish the data just a few weeks ago that did show the CDC study demonstrated a higher risk for African American boys who could develop autism after the MMR vaccine.
So there was a resulting uproar, and many were questioning even whether this report, was real, you know, or whether it was some sort of hoax or something to bolster the anti-vaccine movement. But you first heard the rumors and didn't necessarily believe them, and then you changed your mind. Why did you change your mind, Dr. Sears?
Well, yeah, I was getting some emails, you know, from people who were describing this cover-up by the CDC, but I usually don't believe the first few emails I see until, you know, more and more people get involved. And finally, I felt when I saw CNN write a story on this on their website, then I finally started to realize, hey, maybe this is very credible. And then since then, you know, the CDC has come forward and said, you know, admitted, yes, we did change the data. We did exclude the data from the research, but they came up with what they thought were some good reasons, some valid reasons, which I don't agree with. So after I saw CNN reported on it and the CDC came forward and said, yes, this did happen, then you definitely knew it was a very credible story.
So Dr. Sears, can we be clear at this point? Does this new information mean that vaccines are not safe?
Well, no, we can't say that. We have to interpret the research, correctly. Basically, the only thing I gleaned from this study was that for African American boys who receive the MMR vaccine around age 1 or 2, the vaccine may be more risky for them. It might increase the risk of autism. It showed this to be the case in this set of data, in this group of children. We don't know what would happen if we restudied this in another group of African American boys. We just don't know. And the reason we don't know is that the CDC covered it up. They didn't disclose this back when they first had the data. And so that's really all we can glean from it, is it might be risky for African American boys, and we should take that very seriously. This research does not necessarily apply to the population as a whole, or the general population all grouped together. We don't know what it means for them, because we couldn't take that particular study any further back at the time. And I hope now we'll get larger studies that will move forward and take a look at this data and put together new data to continue to study this.
Well, I received a call from a friend who's a fellow activist and advocate in the autism community who has 2 boys, and they're African American, and she's devastated, Dr. Sears. Don't you think a lot of families out there are asking questions that need to be answered?
Yes, I agree, and we definitely need to pursue this for the African American community. But a second point that really hit me with this story is I used to feel that we could put quite a bit of faith in the CDC research. I mean, they've been researching all kinds of diseases for I don't know how many decades. And then we used to sort of look at that institution as infallible. They wouldn't make mistakes like this. People aren't going to, just cover up data like this. And it's kind of made me lose a little bit of faith in what other studies they've done. Now it kind of makes me wonder, the dozen or so other studies that the CDC has put out there in the last 10 years that show no link between vaccines and autism. How did they manipulate the data in those studies?
I have to say, Dr. Sears, Nancy and I consider ourselves are pretty, we're both autism mothers, and we consider ourselves pretty savvy, and we stay pretty plugged in. But it wasn't until I read your Taka Now blog, the Real Help Now blog, and you detail some of the different events that have happened with the CDC that call for some question. The fact that they routinely granted waivers for conflict of interest rules to every member of the ACIP, which is the board that governs vaccines. I did not know that Dr. Paul Thorson was indicted for stealing $1 million of CDC research money until I read your blog. And both Nancy and I consider ourselves pretty well informed, but we didn't know that.
Yeah, that story came out several years ago. It was all over, a variety of internet news sources, and I, confirmed that this story was reported from a variety of very legitimate international news sources, because Dr. Thorson wasn't even living in the United States anymore at the time. And I was very surprised that it calls into question 2 of the large studies that Dr. Thorson was involved in. They're 2 of the biggest studies that everyone turns to when they're quoting how vaccines are not linked to autism. It's just sort of more and more question now about whether or not those studies were valid, or whether or not the data were manipulated in those studies.
Yeah.
Well, clearly lots of questions, and we could go on and on for hours about this discussion, but we would like to move on to help our viewers understand some of the things. What's the next step to ensure that we have a clear picture of how our children's bodies react to vaccines? What do you think we need to do next?
Well, there are so much research that needs to be done on this. You know, as a pediatrician, you know, I give vaccines in my office almost every day because some of my patients do want a careful, very gradual and slow approach to vaccinations, and most children handle them very well. I still see some bad vaccine reactions from time to time, and a question that's still unclear in my mind is why do some children react poorly to vaccines, whereas 5 of their friends will take the vaccines seemingly without any trouble at all. How do we identify the kids that are going to have a bad reaction? How do we screen them and weed them out? And how do we take a different approach to those children?
Are you, Dr. Sears, do you see, Dr. Sears, do you see a lot of this being immune related, like a child with an underactive immune system or hyperactive immune system being more vulnerable in your experience?
Well, I don't know that I can speak to that in my experience because I haven't really tried to tabulate, with any sort of data collection or research, which children seem to handle them better or not. And I'm so busy all day in the office, just working. But I feel that this research would be easy to do. We need to examine the immune system of healthy newborns. You get 200 newborns and test their immune system. Do blood work on them. For those who choose to begin the vaccine process, you begin the vaccine process, but then you continue to monitor the immune system, monitor the health of their nervous system and their development. Watch these children through monitoring of blood work, look for markers of toxicity and inflammation in the blood, monitor their development, and do the same with an unvaccinated group of a couple.
Oops.
We've lost our feed for just a second here.
Just a second. We'll see if we can get it back.
That's okay. It's a great time for us to take a break and look at some Taka facts. We're going to be right back.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Dr. Bob Sears.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman, Taka Facts, Autism Journey questions and answers that help you get down the path in your autism journey faster, easier, like the Superman that you need to be or Supergirl. But on a serious note, one of the most common questions that I get is what do I do when my child is a non-responder to therapeutics and medical intervention? If you have a child that's a non-responder, know this, and if you've been on the journey for a long time, there's been more research in treatments for autism since 2005 than all previous years combined. So my first recommendation for a kid, for a family that has a kid with a non-responding issue to treatments, therapies, and medical intervention is to reevaluate the treatments that are available. Start with the basics. Go back and revisit a MAPS doctor. Get all of that baseline testing or a good neuropsych if you need to look at the therapeutics. Start with the baseline. The second thing families need to know when they are dealing with a child that has non-responder issues is really you're going to have to scale up. And I mean scale up the time you're spending with your resources to figure out and really become the Sherlock Holmes to understanding what is going on, what is impeding progress, why aren't things moving forward. You really need to make sure that you have a current MRI and a current EEG. Those two tests are so extremely valuable. Often they will provide clues as to what is going on and what treatments that really could help your child make the best progress they can make. Hey, there's another frequently asked question. Wish I had my magic fairy wand so everybody was a responder. It's in the shop. Maybe I'll get it next time when we get together and talk about Taka Facts. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back. We lost our signal with Dr. Sears, but we've got him back now. Dr. Sears, I wanted to jump in, and in the blog, you recommend 2 things that families can do right now, action that they can take, that they can share Bill Thompson's statement. The first one is with the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman Darrell Issa and Chairman Bill Posey. And then you also asked that we share the statement with James Perrin, the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and that in both cases that we request a complete investigation and support for a congressional hearing. Do you feel like if we do that, that we can get to some of that research that you were talking about before that's going to be so important in elucidating what happened?
You know, hopefully, but, you know, I hate to be too optimistic. And the reason is, 3 or 4 years ago, there was a government committee that kind of organizes and manages, what research we should be doing in regards to autism. And this committee tasked the CDC with the job of researching whether or not it was feasible to look further into vaccines and autism. They basically asked the CDC to research whether or not they could do such research, comparing, how vaccines relate to autism and looking at unvaccinated children as well. And unfortunately, the CDC came back and said, no, it's probably not really feasible to research vaccinated versus unvaccinated children, or to research vaccines and autism the way people are asking us to. They pretty much shut the door on that, and that was sort of the government's last attempt, to have the CDC look further into this. Now, I'm kind of summarizing and generalizing here, and I don't remember all the exact details of this latest report from a couple of years ago. I don't know if you guys remember that.
I do. I vaguely remember.
Vaguely.
It's disappointing.
Yes.
At the very least.
But I mean, essentially, somebody in the government is going to have to insist that the medical community take this more seriously, and the CDC take a more detailed look the way parents are asking them to, because the CDC doesn't seem to be showing any signs that they're going to do this on their own. It's really going to take.
Well, this brings up the whole question of some people believing that it's going to be impossible as long as there are lobbyists who lobby for the major pharmaceutical companies, and we get into a huge debate here. And we want to point out, we want to get back to some of the issues right at hand. And we want to point out, Dr. Sears, that you do vaccinate, and in many cases you vaccinate children who probably their parents would not vaccinate if they didn't feel that they could follow a safer schedule. So we want to point that out. You want to comment on that to your critics, so to speak?
Well, yeah, I know. I see myself as kind of neutral on vaccines. I'm definitely not anti-vaccine. I'm pro-vaccine as far as a very safe, careful, gradual approach. And I do vaccinate children in my office every day. I think it's what sets me apart is I'm willing to accept patients who don't want to vaccinate and be their pediatrician. A lot of doctors in my area actually kick these patients out of their office. One of the biggest groups here in Southern Orange County just kicked out, all of their patients that weren't fully vaccinated. And it's hundreds, if not thousands of patients that now have to find a new doctor because doctors are not open to having these patients in their office. I do think parents should have the right to raise their children without vaccines if they feel that it's not safe, if they feel they're not comfortable with it, they don't trust the safety research. Parents should have that right. And I'm very accepting of that right that parents should have. I think that's kind of what sets me apart as a doctor.
Well, Dr. Sears, we appreciate you so much for taking the time to do this, and also for being the one clear voice in this storm of activity, talking about what does this mean, what doesn't this mean. Your article, the blog that is on Real Help, it is the clear voice, and we thank you for being that voice in a storm. I encourage everybody to go and read this blog. It's Real Help now, and we thank you.
Thank you
for what you're doing.
Our viewers, the families out there that watch this webcast are going to be very grateful to you for this information that you shared with us today and taking time out of your busy schedule, Dr. Sears.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm very happy to be on, and we'll do more blogs as events move forward, and I'm always posting a lot of stuff just on my own Dr. Bob Sears Facebook page as well.
Wonderful.
So people can join me there, join me on the Talker blog, and we'll put out more information as it comes to light.
We thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Truly remarkable.
Yeah, that was what a great opportunity for us to shed some light on an issue that I know every one of my friends, autism mom or not, is talking about. I'm getting constant emails on this, from the initial Andrew Wakefield video to now the newest information. Yeah. And I really hope we can shed some light on this issue for our viewers.
Well, I really appreciate the idea. You know, so often you see things and it's black or white. Mm-hmm. And so little in life really is black or white. There's so much gray out there.
Right.
And when people take a stance and go, something is, you know, this or it's that, it always feels a little untrue to me. So I appreciate the concerns that he is saying, but not painting a picture that is completely bleak either.
And, you know, that really speaks to something, Shannon. When I read the LA Times piece yesterday, and I texted you immediately, took a shot of it, and said, look at this. I was reading it to my husband, reading aloud, and I noticed how the people that criticized Dr. Sears, predominantly a man named Dr. Paul Offit, who's head of infectious diseases at a major hospital. He, I think, came up with the heretic name, maybe, but he went on to say he's more dangerous than Jenny McCarthy or misinformed celebrities, and really strong sort of character assassination. And I always notice that the voice of reason never assassinates the other side. Yeah. Did you hear how gracious Dr. Sears was?
Yeah. Yeah, truly
that really says a lot. It's very telling to me.
Well, we thank Dr. Sears for being here. We look forward to getting more information, and do check out his Facebook page and check out the blog, the Real Help Talk On Now blog, a wonderful source of information. And by the way, it's not your average blog. They reference absolutely every fact that they put in their blogs. I really appreciate that. Great. So, all right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with more Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages.
Hello, activist. Let's talk about step 8. State your intention. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it. Author Napoleon Hill wrote that 100 years ago. The Power of Positive Thinking. Norman Vincent Peale wrote that 60 years ago. See, practicing positive, focused thought has been around a long time, long before The Secret came about. That's because practicing positive, focused thinking really works. Think about when you drive somewhere in your car. You don't just go around in circles. You have a destination, right? I mean, sure, there's going to be speed bumps and detours along the way, but you know where you're going. State what you want to achieve. Say it aloud, write it down. I have Post-its on my computer. One says, get Wyatt all the treatment and therapy he needs to reach his full potential. Step 2, help other families. The focus part is really important, because I realize that in this lifetime, I'm not going to be elected president or become a rock star. But I'm doing okay on those first 2 steps. Live in a state of knowing you will reach your goals for you and your child. Until next time, keep the faith.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're being joined right now by some really incredible people from an organization called Special Spirit. They're a nonprofit certified equine therapy center that serves a diverse population of children and adults. It's a place where a broken spirit or broken body can heal with the help of rescued therapy horses.
Welcome, Ava Lund and Kathy Alonso.
Thank you.
Shannon, these 2 ladies are near and dear to my heart, and Special Spirit is very connected to my family. Wyatt rides at Special Spirit, and we donated 2 of our horses, Big Moon and Mini Moon, to Special Spirit. And we're going to show you some pictures a little later on. But the amazing thing is that the founder of Special Spirit, Ava Lund, has Moon Shadow Ranch. So the Moons are at Moon Shadow Ranch, which is the home of Special Spirit. And Ava, you developed a passion for this work growing up in your native Sweden, working with special needs kids. You went on to get numerous certifications, and You are also the godmother of Jake, who is autistic, and Kathy Alonso. You are a board member extraordinaire of Special Spirit. You are an LAUSD special ed teacher, the mother of an autistic son, and the coordinator of the upcoming Kiwanis Horse Show. So let's go back to what sort of the mission of Special Spirit is.
Well, Special Spirit's mission, it's like, it's to help all children with special needs, particularly autistic kids, because of my godson, Jake. He's 22 today, so I've been through
Happy
the
birthday,
whole
Jake.
family since he was born, and, you know, all the stages that you go through.
Of course. And Kathy, how old is your son?
He's going to be 28 next month.
Okay, okay.
So 10 years ago when I bought the ranch, Jake was at the ranch a lot, and we saw the connection he had with the horses, and his speech, his socialization with both of us and everybody else at the ranch. And then in 2008, I decided to start Special Spirit. And we've been on a roll ever since. And it's amazing to see what the horses do for our kids and to us too, you know. I learned so much from these kids, and it's wonderful. We also do equine therapy now for both foster kids, and a lot of them are also on the spectrum. And we are going to have a veterans program opening up later on this fall.
Okay. And Kathy, tell us about your involvement with Special Spirit, and then we want to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming events you have. Two important events, the Kiwanis Horse Show, of course, and then your big party that you've got coming up. So how did you get involved?
Well, I actually started getting involved when my son was 3 years old. He started riding horses back then. My father was an LA County sheriff, and we've been riding horses pretty much all our life. And when we had our son diagnosed, we determined that he just had this natural ability to be around horses, and he just had so much passion, and it started to bring out language with him. And so we, not until 9 years old did we get him involved in the Special Olympics. And so I became a coach, and it was in Chatsworth. And so the Special Olympics had an equestrian program there. And we were involved with that program for many, many years. And my son is now an advanced rider.
Great.
And he has just, you know, blossomed and gained so much confidence and ability. He works in the community. He graduated from El Camino High School and Pierce College. And, you know, he's an amazing young man. And I really contribute that to a lot of the therapy that he received on the horses.
Yeah, let's just talk for a minute about EAP, Equine Assisted Psychotherapy. A lot of people maybe think, oh, well, you know, how can kids really benefit from just being around horses? But it's really, it provides some powerful healing. How does it do that, Ava?
Well, think about it. The horse is very big, so some kids are very scared of it. And but the horse is very honest. It mirrors our emotions. So you can come with a smile on your face, with scaredness in your heart, and the horse is going to just pick up what's inside of you and treat you accordingly. So it's and then they also know what we need. So if you are sad and down, you can see a horse that might not go up to me, but he goes up to you because he knows that you need his little nuzzle on his shoulder or whatever have you. And it's so remarkable to see, you know.
I've been, you know, Wyatt has been riding since he was 2 years old, but what I experienced at the ranch in Kelby, I think we have a couple of photos of Wyatt out at Moonshadow Ranch. Okay, there's Wyatt with Olivia, who's a vet, a Marine vet, and that's what oh, and here's Minnie Moon, who we donated. There's Wyatt with Minnie Moon, and I think we have a photo of Wyatt getting ready to go out on the horses. I don't know if Kelby can find all these. I sent quite a few photos this morning. But Minnie Moon is, now you have 3 Minnies. Oh, there's Big Moon and Minnie Moon. Don't they look just alike at Moonshadow Ranch, no less? and Wyatt is riding Big Moon in his lessons. But when he goes out, he has, what do you call the assistants that walk beside him?
The sidewalkers, yeah.
Yes.
But he's getting very independent in his riding now, so soon he's going to be with maybe a spotter and ride on his own.
That's fantastic.
He's very talented.
Okay, great. So, go ahead.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the Kiwanis Horse Show, Kathy, and what that is and what you've been doing with Kiwanis, how they've been helping you.
Well, this is going to be our 21st annual equestrian event. It started off with the Special Olympics, and then in 2005, the Special Olympics decided they did not want to participate in equestrian any longer, and we were really blessed that the Kiwanis wanted to continue this horse show for the riders. And so we were so happy that they decided to continue to put it together, get the sponsors, get all the, they provide all the food. It's a free event.
A free event.
A free event.
Okay, let's talk about when this is. And I know Wyatt's going to be doing the oath. Is that correct?
Yes, he
I'm
is.
very proud we're practicing that, and he's going to be riding in it. We're going to have to get you and Jen to come out.
Jen will love that.
And so let's talk about when it is and how people can come.
It's on Sunday, October 12th. And it's going to be at Hanson Dam Equestrian Center. We've hosted it there for quite some time now. They're gracious, and it's a great facility. It's for the entire family. So we have over 500 people show up on that Sunday. We have 12 programs right now from all over California, and it is one of the largest therapeutic events for equestrians. So I
think it is the largest.
It is the largest. We'll make it the largest.
And so we have anywhere from 75 to 100 athletes with various disabilities and different skill levels. And I would say about 75% are on the spectrum.
Okay.
Because of the programs and the funding and everything like that. So, and we have all the same events that any other horse competition would have. We have equitation, we have trail and obstacle, and we have futures. And we have everything from 2.5-year-olds all the way up to 90-year-olds.
Wow. It's so great. It's so inclusive.
It's a full day event. It's all free, like I said. We have a silent auction, we have a raffle, we have entertainment, we have face painting. And like I said, it's a very family, so you can bring the siblings of the children or the adults, and there's always something for somebody to do.
Is there a website people can go if they want to get more information as the date gets sooner?
Yes, it's under the Kiwanis Club of Warner Center.
Okay.
Kiwanis Club of Warner Center, W-A-R-N-E-R Center. And that is out here in the San Fernando Valley, because we are an international webcast, but we have a lot of Southern California viewers. So the date, once again?
Is Sunday, October 12th.
Okay. So go to the Kiwanis Club of Warner Center to find out about it. I'll be there. Please come out. Wyatt will be riding.
I can't see any reason why Jim and I
think you and Jim are going to be there.
To come and support Wyatt.
Definitely. So, but you also have another event coming up very soon.
Yeah, at Special Spirit we have our 6th annual barn party fundraiser, and the 6th one, and it raises money so we can keep all our lessons affordable. I think we are the cheapest. We take about $35 per lesson.
Yeah, it's very cheap for riding.
Yeah, and we are definitely promoting horsemanship. I want all the kids to brush the horse and get to know and have a sort of a relationship with the horse before you mount it. And that's on September 27th. We have Deborah Lee and the Trigger Happy Band playing.
They sound like fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to be putting on my dancing boots.
And we blow up bouncy house for the kids. We have vendors, barbecue, and a silent auction as well.
And a great auction with a lot of goodies that we're going to be
And what is the date for that again?
September 27th, start at 4 o'clock, and we go on until 10.
And if people want more information about Special Spirit, what's the website to go for that?
www.specialspirit.org.
Okay.
It's very simple, specialspirit.org.
Yes.
Well, I have to say, you have been a blessing in our lives. We had donated Moon to another program that did not work out when we were downsizing and leaving our home. And this has been, I'm going to get emotional here, this has been a blessing to know you. a blessing for my family, a blessing for my horses, and a blessing for my son. I think the work you do is extraordinary.
Thank you.
And I'm very happy to say that ACT Today is going to be giving a grant to 2 very deserving autistic boys who have a very difficult family situation, so they can continue their riding with your program, which is making a profound difference.
I wish I had a video on Saturday when they were out. They have incredible voices, and they both started singing in harmony when they were riding.
Oh. Wow. Wow. I get emotional. She goes and then I go. The waterworks. But how wonderful, and how wonderful that you're able to give them a grant so that they can continue.
And Moon and Minnie Moon, they are a blessing to us too. I can put any kid on Big Moon and take him out on the trail ride.
He is a love, and you know, we noticed very early on, we were able to, Wyatt was a baby when he first got on Moon. I mean, he literally wanted to be in the saddle with me, and he rode him in several parades in our old neighborhood of Hidden Hills, and it was heartbreaking when we had to give him up, but I don't feel like we've given him up. I feel like what we've done is we've given him a whole new lease on life. He has a whole new purpose, and Minnie Moon is the most spoiled, rotten little miniature in the world.
As it should be.
Yes, and they are so happy there.
But all the little kids love Minnie Moon because he is like a real horse to them.
Yes.
You know, proportion-wise.
Yes.
And he's parked right by the cross ties where we tack up the horses, so he gets a lot of treats.
He gets pet. I mean, this is just, you can't imagine.
He's a rock star now.
He's a rock star. They both are. Big Moon and Minnie Moon at Moonshadow Ranch, they're rock stars.
There we go.
So, well, you ladies do such extraordinary work. I'm going to be going to speak to the Kiwanis very early tomorrow morning with you, and we'll be talking with them about the plans for the upcoming parade and show, and we're very excited about all the work you're doing. And for those of you that are interested in equine therapy, I urge you to check it out for your children. We have seen absolute miracles with this therapy. We do believe in it at ACT Today. We do get grants for it because particularly certain children tend to really respond, and some of them become verbal for the first time with their horses.
Yes. I would encourage parents to bring their children to this event.
Yes.
And check it out, because there's programs from all over Southern California.
Yeah.
So it's not just here in the San Fernando Valley.
They can get
They can come and talk to the programs. They can talk to other families.
Yeah. Which brings up a really interesting point, because as Nancy said, we're an international show. We're viewed internationally. Where can people go to look for an equine therapy if they're in Arkansas or if they're in New York? Is there a website that shows who's
There's a
certified?
national organization called PATH International, PATH. It stands for Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship.
Okay.
And it's international, actually.
Okay.
And there are therapeutic riding centers all over the world, so there should not be any children deprived of horsemanship.
And Ava, you are also working with all kinds of populations. In addition to autism, veterans are particularly helped by this therapy.
And especially veterans, children that are on the autism spectrum.
Yes, because there's a lot of stress and PTSD with the parents. Yeah. And then so it ties into our ACT Today for Military Family program. So there's a lot of synergy there. So anyway, we are so happy you came in today. We're going to encourage everybody to go, and I'm going to invite everybody I know, and we're just going to have a great time at these 2 events.
Thank you for all your work, ladies.
And I'll see you Saturday for riding lessons.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
We're going to take a break right now, and then Nancy and I are going to come back and cover some of the latest news about the young boy who thought he was doing the ALS challenge and instead was treated very cruelly.
A cruel hoax.
Cruel hoax. So we've got an update on that, so stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yeah.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community. And we're back, and it was great to have Ava and Kathy here. What a great program they have. Let's go back to Dr. Bob Sears for a minute and this whole controversy about the MMR vaccine and the whistleblower, and now the LA Times article on Dr. Sears calling him a heretic. Then this morning, the editorial in the LA Times, which basically goes so far as to say that perhaps we should go back to, not go back, but start a new law that makes it absolutely mandatory for vaccinations with the exception of religious reasons.
Right now in the California, it is mandatory to have your child vaccinated, but you can fill out an exemption sheet and you can cite a religious exception to the vaccines, or you can cite a medical exception to the vaccines and have your pediatrician sign off on it that you are excused. You have to fill it out, and it says that you understand that if there is an outbreak of something, that your child may be requested to stay home, and you fill that out, you do whatever. The thing that is horrifying to me about this, there's two things that bug me about this. First of all, if you actually listen, if you read the article that Dr. Bob Sears wrote and you actually listen to what he said when he is here with us, he is somebody who is not saying don't vaccinate your children. This is what really gripes me. He's not saying that. He's saying educate yourself, and then you should have a say in how you want to do it, and if you want to space it out, that he will work with you. He's not telling anyone not to vaccinate their children, so this reaction and saying that that what he is doing is causing a potential public health crisis is it's such an overreaction in my estimation. And then to go so far as to say, well, then we should mandate it and force everyone to do what we want them to do. They could have said anything. They could have said fill in the blank and said we're going to mandate that every single child go have equine therapy, and I think that would be lovely, but I would still say, why are you requiring everyone to do it? What is your need to make us all do something? I understand what their concerns are, but I really take exception when they want to not have a medical reason for being exempt for vaccines.
Well, for example, and to everything you just said, pal, ditto. But I do have to say that my son has a hyperimmune disorder, okay, which a very highly respected neuromolecular psychiatrist has explained to me that many of the toxins that enter his body are rejected by his immune system, and that can shut down neuropathways of the brain, which could be a reason for Wyatt regressing into autism. Right. If I don't have a reason to reject vaccines, I don't know anybody who does. With that information. If I could not use that information, that medical information, then I think that's criminal. It's forcing me to do something with my child when I know there's a medical reason he should not be further vaccinated.
And I think I want to be further clear that, we are not saying on this show, because neither one of us are saying to anybody, don't vaccinate your child.
We've never said that.
I would never say that. I would never say that in a million years. But I don't understand why on the other side they feel like they can legislate for people what you have to do, even if you have a medical reason not to.
And I still don't understand why vaccines can't be spaced out, which is the main thing Dr. Sears is advocating, that vaccines be spaced out. There is no other reason for the MMR to be put in one shot, with the exception of money. It is a financial reason first and foremost to put those vaccines together so it can be cheaper and they don't have to do it separately. And I always say follow the money if you want to find the reason for something.
Well, my grandmother always used to say the expression, "He thinks the lady doth protest too much."
Yeah, well,
when
yes,
it's inappropriate.
that's from Shakespeare, by the way.
Right, and yes, but that was her favorite phrase, that when somebody was overreacting to something, what Dr. Sears said was, this has raised questions, so we should all be interested in getting more answers. That's all he said.
Okay.
And
now,
he thinks the lady doth protest way too much.
Okay, so let's move on to Ice Bucket Challenge. They believe they have identified, well, they have identified the kids in Ohio.
The teenagers,
they're saying. Bay Village have identified the people.
But they're calling them teenagers, which to me is significant.
Right. I just read the people, but I don't know.
Up at the top
teens,
of the article, it says the teens.
Okay, you're right, teens.
And it's plural, teens, that they believe that they've identified them. They're not releasing the names of the teens, and I respect that they're not doing that.
Yes, I do too. There's been a big outcry among celebrities. As we know, Drew Carey stepped forward, and we were like, yay, Drew.
Yes,
then Jenny McCarthy and Donnie Wahlberg jumped on that bandwagon, as did Montel Williams. And then there was a reaction to that, saying, well, should we be, offering a bounty for these kids and further shaming? I don't believe in further shaming. I think you and I are on the same page that these kids need to be educated. And by educating them, we educate educate the world.
Yeah.
And if this whole disastrous incident can be the impetus for helping bring attention to autism and bullying in autism, which is over 70% of our kids are bullying, then this can be turned into something good.
And I say hooray to Drew Carey for heightening the conversation, and he said, I will give $10,000 that leads to information that identifies these teens. He didn't say that leads to punishing these teens.
No, he didn't.
And those teens need to be identified because they need help. And we were talking about this before. I'm not big on punishment because I'm big on ABA, but those kids need to make amends. They need to make amends for what they did.
I agree.
And,
big apology.
And they need some big time therapy, because anybody who could go through all the steps that you needed to do to get that 14-year-old young man in that position where they could dump those substances, that was a multi-step thing. They need some serious help. They needed to be identified. I salute Drew Carey for having heightened that conversation, but those kids need to make amends. They need to understand what it's like on the other side. I don't think that's punishment. I think that's progress.
I agree. I think it's progress. All right, let's talk about... I love it when you get feisty.
We have to talk about, because tomorrow is 9/11.
Yes, it is. It's a big day in my life.
Yes, a very important day to commemorate. We're not going to be here doing a show. We're going to be back with you next Tuesday. But I wanted to take a minute to salute all of our individuals who are in the armed forces, who every day put themselves in harm's way. To everyone, everybody was affected by that day, but it was a huge day for you.
It was a huge day for me. It was a real turning point. On 9/11, I had given up hope of having a child and adopting. We had had a failed adoption, an adoption scam, numerous failed adoptions, infertility I was infertile, treatments failing, and I had given up hope. And on that day, as I was watching the Second Trade Center collapse, I received a call from adoption attorney's office saying they had had a new birth mother come in, and that she was due in 2 months. And I looked at the screen, and literally what I call God speaking to me said, you must keep going forward if you can make the difference in the life of a child. Because I thought about all the children that would come home that night without a parent. And I said, I've got to pursue this. That turned out to be the birth mother of Wyatt, and Wyatt was born on 11/9. So that was a day that profoundly changed our family's life.
Yeah, absolutely. So we commemorate that day. We commemorate everybody who was involved.
And all of our military families, particularly those with children with autism, and all the obstacles.
We're in your corner. We're totally out of time. But thank you for being with us. We'll be back on the air next Tuesday. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.